Hello, folks, and welcome back to the MiEnviro Portal Renewable Operating Permits mini-series in our bigger MiEnviro Portal series. You're back for part 2, which is about renewal applications. My name is Caitlin DeVries. I'm with the Eagles Environmental Support Division. I'm the Air Quality and Outreach Specialist. I'll be here moderating today's session. Hopefully you were able to join us for part 1 this morning on initial applications. If you weren't, we will get that recording out here soon. But I just wanted to let you know that you're here for part 2 for renewals. Before we jump into the content that we have for you this afternoon, I do want to cover a couple of quick housekeeping items. So the first housekeeping item is that all lines are muted and are going to remain muted throughout the session today. Secondly, we are recording this session, and we hope to have the recording posted on our website and our Eagle YouTube channel, hopefully by tomorrow, but if at the latest, the end of the week. And you will also get emailed a link directly to that recording so that you can go back and re-review the webinar if you missed something or wanted to re-clarify something, or if you wanted to share the information with a colleague of yours who maybe wasn't able to attend today's webinar. Lastly, we are taking questions, and please use the question and answer box in the bottom of your screen in your Zoom toolbar to ask questions as we go along throughout the session. We will do our best to get to as many questions as we can. However, if we hit the end of our time together today and we haven't gotten to your question, we will get back to you via email separately. As when you registered for the webinar, we do have your email on file and we'll get back to you in that method. So now that I have that housekeeping taken care of, we are ready to introduce to you this afternoon's speaker. So we are lucky to have Julie Brunner, the ROP Central Unit Supervisor, on with us for part 2 to talk about renewals. So Julie, if you want to go ahead and turn your camera on, that would be great. I know you're going to get us right into the content and get us going. So whenever you are ready, it looks like you're still muted. You can take yourself off mute and get us going.
Okay. So welcome to this afternoon's webinar on how to fill out ROP renewal applications. You should see my agenda. I'm going to start with terminology and submission status and what those mean in MiEnviro. Go through before you start your ROP renewal application, then go through a live demo showing you how to access the submission package, which an ROP application is within a submission package, how to fill it out, how to submit, correct, and track, and then briefly touch on minor modifications during the processing of your renewal. And at the end, we'll have questions, but we will also pause for questions throughout this throughout this training. First, before we get into the training, I want to highlight the fact that we have written guidance documents for all of the ROP applications forms. So if you miss anything, in addition to rewatching this recording, you can also go to our written instructions, which cover all the material that we're covering today in detail, including instructions for every single field within the application form. So you will notice, if you have already gotten into the system, since you have existing ROPs, that the ROP numbering has changed. The system has assigned an ROP permit number for the life of your ROP. So this part of the ROP number will not change. What will change is permit versioning. So all initial ROPs that are issued will be version 1.0. When the initial ROP is renewed, then we'll index to version 2.0, next renewal 3.0, 4.0, etc. Any modifications, the reversioning will be version 2.1, 2.2, 2.3 with each modification during the term of whatever version of the ROP you're in. Next, I'm going to go through terminology. So the system refers to any application form or report that you've submitted as a submission. So the ROP renewal application submission package is a submission. As you notifications are system generated emails. You will receive, site users will receive a variety of notifications when specific functions are completed in MiEnviro. Notifications also show up within MiEnviro. I will show you where you can locate those. Evaluations include on-site inspections, odor evaluations, full compliance evaluations, complaint investigations, test observations. So a site, so we have traditionally referred to a facility or stationary source. In MiEnviro, everything is a site. A single company that has multiple locations will manage multiple sites within MiEnviro, and information is organized around sites in the system. Schedules. Compliance reporting is a schedule. So this is a type of reporting form that is associated with your site or with a specific permit. So an example would be your semi-annual compliance reports or your annual compliance report that is associated with an ROP, a test report for testing required by a permit. Schedules can have specific due dates, like your semi-annual and annual compliance reports have a specific due date, or they might be on an as-needed basis. Lastly, correction requests. We used to call these additional information requests, and they still are, but they will show up as a correction request when information in an application needs to be updated, corrected, or is missing. Next, I'm going to go through terminology for users. So a viewer can see all information on a site, but cannot make changes. An editor can see all information on a site, and can begin and edit submissions. An administrator can do everything an editor can do, plus manage user access to the site. Certifier. So certain submissions require the submitter to have certifier status. So an editor administrator can have certifier status. Your responsible official has to have certifier status because all ROP application forms and correction requests must be submitted by a responsible official when it comes to ROP application forms, and therefore your responsible official or authorized representative will need to have certifier status in order to do this. So in the context of this training in ROPs, the responsible official for the site, per definition of Michigan Air Pollution Control Rules 118J, or their authorized representative, needs to be the one to certify and submit the application or any correction requests. So to recap, you can be an editor without certifier status or an editor with certifier status. You can be an administrator without certifier status or an administrator with certifier status, but it's only the responsible official who has certifier status that can submit the ROP application or ROP related forms. Next, I'm going to cover status changes in the system. When you see status, the status is listed in the box here on the left. This means the submission is in the applicant's hand, and they will need to submit it before AQD will be able to see it. So not started is the form itself. draft is one that you are working on, and on hold means that HUD has sent a correction request, and we are waiting for the applicant to complete that correction request and send it back. This middle area here under HUD review, you will see a number of statuses once you have submitted your application. Pre-processing is a temporary status while the system processes the information and gets it to us. It is a temporary status. You'll only see it briefly. Once it has been received by HUD, it will be listed in process. And if the status is locked for review, we have locked it for review on our end to review it, and no submissions or changes can be made by the applicant while it is locked in review. The final box here contains statuses for ROPs. The in effect is an issued or active permit. So every permit that has an in effect status is issued. Superseded is another status I will point out. When you are renewing an ROP, once that renewal is issued, the previous ROP will be superseded by the renewed ROP. So for instance, if you submit an application to renew a 2015 ROP, it will be superseded by the ROP that is issued. If it is issued in 2020, that one will become the one in effect, and the 2015 ROP will be superseded in the system. So this is a layout of the application process that I'm going to cover. I'm going to start with before you start your application, and then I'm going to move into live demonstration that includes the rest of this. But before you start, we always encourage a pre-application meeting for your renewal application and your initial application for ROPs. Contact your district office. We want to troubleshoot your application before you submit. You're going to discuss compliance status, any changes at the facility, any new PTIs that need to be incorporated, and a timeline for submitting the application and projected schedule. You can also get help on if you have questions on navigating MiEnviro while you're during the pre-application meeting. So it is really important at this point with a whole new system to schedule a pre-application meeting. So as part of putting together your application for your renewal, you need to gather all necessary materials, PTIs, consent orders, review your actual emissions and allowed emissions, review your existing ROP for changes, has anything changed, and and update the master facility equipment inventory. Now, this is a new step with MiEnviro. Your application form will be tied to equipment in your master facility inventory. So you want to make sure that your equipment inventory is up to date. And I will show you where you can go to update that equipment inventory as we go through the live demo. And as I mentioned, you will want to identify any new requirements that you will be putting in your application for your renewal. All right, so as I mentioned, process overview, we're going to look at accessing the submission package, filling out the application form, how to review, sign, certify, and what happens after submittal. But before I get into that, I want to discuss correction requests, because I'm going to show you a correction request in the system, and I just wanted to go through some basics on this. So correction requests are actually additional information requests. So they will the correction requests you will get a user notification. Quick questions may still be covered by a quick email or phone call. Attachments that were sometimes sent via email to update applications can now be added to your electronic submittal. And if you need to correct any of those within the application form, you will get a correction request. So before we get into the live training demonstration, do I have any questions?
Yeah, Julie, there is just one question that came in about the certifier paperwork. So you mentioned that the responsible official needs to submit all of the information just as it was before. So that's really no different than what it was before. But they have to submit that paperwork to become the certifier just one time. So the question was, how long does it take to process that and appear in the portal? And I know that those certifier agreements do come into Amy Haywood, and she does check those every morning. So I would say if you're waiting more than just a few days, give her, 3 or 4 days to get that approved. To check back and email that eagle-air-MiEnviro@michigan.gov email address, but that should get you all taken care of. Was there anything you wanted to add on to that, Julie?
Only that certifier agreement paperwork is the only paper, it's the only paper you will be submitting to us. And I totally missed that in when I discussed certifier agreements, but yes, so it is the only piece of paper you will submit. Other than that, when you go through and submit your application, you'll certify electronically, certify and sign electronically after that.
Yep, thanks for that, Julie. Okay, I think you're ready to jump in.
All right. So first, I want to, a few notes on this. I am doing the live training demonstration in UAT, which is a testing environment. The sources that are in here are not real sources. We put together for training purposes only. So when you first log into MiEnviro, if you are associated with multiple sites, it is actually going to start you at all, and then you are going to want to select in the upper left hand area the drop down caret and make sure you are in the site that you wish to do your application in. I'm going to choose today for this training ROP test site number 5. And when you initially log in, it brings you to your dashboard. I'm going to go brief tutorial on the dashboard. Categories are listed along the top here. Priority are those that are high priority. They need to be taken care of within a certain due date. It's the first ones to come up. Upcoming is any other schedules, submissions, reports that have specific due dates. And it is just to let you know these are coming and their due dates. As needed, these are forms that are not tied to a specific due date. So under as needed is, let me find it. I am looking for the off-permit equipment inventory update. So this is an as needed form. And if you need to update your equipment inventory before you get started on your ROP application, this is the form you would submit. If you need it fairly fast, please contact us. Any equipment that is added to this in the off-permit equipment inventory update needs to be reviewed and then promoted to the master facility inventory before it will become available in the application form that you are going to fill out. Draft is the application forms or submissions that you are working on. To be signed is not a field we're using, and in process are those forms that have been submitted and you are to AQD, and we are currently working on them. So the other thing I wanted to point out is the system will send you notifications as your applications and schedules are submitted. You can find notifications up here in the little bubble at the top. You can also find them along the navigation menu. So before you start your renewal application, and in general, when you are working in the system, you will want to go to site details and you will want to check that your contacts are up to date. So your contacts with their specific roles will be listed here. You will want to make sure that your responsible official is listed, any site contacts. The one thing I want to point out is that we have a role called authorized employee. Because we share the system with water, authorized employee may actually be your authorized representative, but you will want to check that that is indeed, that they have been approved for that. To do that, you will open this contact and you will want to go down to comments and make sure that your authorized representative has been AQD approved. So this is where you find that your authorized representative to confirm who that is, and they can act on, they have been designated by the responsible official, and this does take an approval process. So if you are not finding your authorized representative, contact your district and make sure that they have been approved by AQD and get the contact updated. The other thing with responsible officials, I'm going to click cancel to get out of the information here. The other thing with responsible officials is you want to go down and check authorized users, and you will want to make sure that your responsible official, who I'm one on this testing site, has certifier status approved. So just to point out some other areas on this navigation menu, permits is going to list all your in effect, terminated, rolled into ROP permits for your facility. Evaluations is where you're going to find your on-site inspections. Documents is where you're going to find all documents for your permits. The equipment and emissions inventory is going to take you into Slice, where you can check your master facility inventory to make sure it is up to date. So we are here to talk about how to start an ROP renewal application. To do that, you will want to go to the permits functional area and find your ROP that is in effect. You should only have one per site ROP. You can now, however, have multiple PTIs that are currently in effect that will need to be incorporated with your renewal. So you will go over here to the far right and the three dots, click on those and click on View Permit Change Forms. So your ROP renewal application is under Permit Change Forms, and this is a submission package. So here's your ROP number. You'll want to make sure that is the right number. It should be, because you just clicked on the change form for it, and you'll want to view this package. Now we have directions built in throughout the process with ROP renewals. These are a submission package. It consists of two forms. The required form is the renewal form itself. We also have a form, an as needed form, if you need to submit for a minor modification during renewal. So as we're processing the ROP, if you get a new PTI and you need to operate under the requirements of that PTI immediately, you will submit this, but it is only submitted during processing of the ROP. So to start, you're going to click the begin button here on the right. So where we have instructions up front, contacts, your ROP renewal application instructions, the link is available here on the lower right. You can click on those, and your instructions will open up in a separate tab, so you have them available to refer to during your process if so needed. And then we're going to go back to this tab, and I'm going to begin form entry for the renewal application. So the renewal application is set up based in sections for you to fill out here on the left to navigate through easily. Your first section that is going to show up is permit information. These are all pre-filled, so you're just going to confirm that the information in here is correct. If any of the information in the pre-fills is not correct, please contact us immediately. So, and then you're on to part A. Again, this is a lot of pre-fills, and if this information here is not correct, please contact us. You have your SIC code, your primary NAICS, site address. So this application form is set up there. It's basically this similar, follows the same as the paper forms do. So part A through H is the same as the paper forms. The questions are very similar. And so I will point out the parts as we walk through this, and we're going to go on to the next section. Well, went a little beyond that. So you can easily navigate between the sections of the ROP on the left here. So regardless of whether you have a sectioned ROP or just one ROP section, you're going to put a business name here at the top. This is my And if there is a section number, you will also add the section number. I'm only going to do a one section ROP today, but this is where the information would be put. So on to part A, continued. This is contact information. You're required to put in at least one primary contact. There is room for two. Everything that is showing in red here is a required field. So if you do not fill this out, it will send you back to complete it. So, and there is helpful hints and directions along the side here. So, primary contact information. I'm just going to fill this out. You are required to put in the type of phone. There is some basic checking of making sure you've actually got valid information in here, including whether or not you have a valid form of an email address, although it will not confirm whether or not the email actually works. So notice how all the red disappeared as soon as I filled that out. Primary responsible official information required to be filled. You need at least one, but you can put in there is room for 2. I'm going to make myself I am the responsible official just for the demonstration purposes. But
Julie,
and
while
this,
you're filling that out,
yes,
yeah, as you can keep typing along there if you'd like. We do have a couple of questions that came in about responsible officials, so I thought this might be a good time to answer those.
okay.
So this first question is about certifiers and responsible officials for ROPs with multiple sections. So I know this question was brought up in the part 1 this morning, but it's definitely good to bring up again. So the question is a certifier considered the certifier only for a particular section in the ROP, or are all certifiers able to certify all submittals? And then the third part of that question goes on to say, what if the certifier meets the regulatory definition of the responsible official only for a portion of the site? So part 1 instead of section 1 instead of section 2. Could you just maybe clarify some of that? The certifier is for the site, since it's for the site, that's done on a site basis, but maybe you could add some detail in there on the responsible official.
So the form is not specific to when you submit it. It's only going to allow one responsible official to sign and certify. So if you have different responsible officials that you have put in for different sections, they get to coordinate with each other on who is going to sign off on that application. So when you go to site contacts, and actually this would be a good spot, I want to highlight that as you are moving through this, when you move from section to section, it's going to automatically save progress. But if you need to get out of the form, when you're in the middle of filling it out, you can save progress. And then we're going to exit the form. And I'm going to show you site contacts again briefly. All right. So site details, site contacts. Here you can have as many responsible officials listed on a site as you need. And as I mentioned, your authorized employee, if they're designated, authorized by the responsible official, it's been approved, this is another person that can sign and certify the application form if they are listed as one of the responsible officials in any section of that ROP application. So you do need whoever signs that ROP application needs to be one of the responsible officials that is listed in that application.
Perfect. That makes more sense to me. If the person who asked that question is still having questions, maybe we can reach out directly to Julie and she can walk you through your site in particular if there are more questions on that. But there are just 2 other quick questions here, Julie, on responsible officials. So one question was, can a certifier be the responsible official? And the answer to that is yes, your responsible official must have certifier rights. So a certifier doesn't have to be the responsible official, but for ROP purposes and submittals, your responsible official has to be a certifier for those purposes. And then Julie, another question on here is you mentioned the term authorized representative, and there was a question on here about do or can consultants become an authorized representative?
I don't think they're going to meet the qualifications under Rule 118J. So you will have to read the definition of responsible official and what criteria has to be met. So I don't believe you're a responsible official. Does authorized representative can be a consultant because they're not going to meet the criteria in that definition. This might be a good spot to add, for the off-permit equipment inventory. That does not have to be signed and certified by the responsible official. That can be an authorized, that can be a, someone who is certified on the site that works for the company.
Great, thanks, Julie. Yeah, as a reminder, there's a lot of definitions and terminology that Julie's pointing out. I'll throw a link back into our chat where if people have more questions about some of those terms, they can take a look. We do have a lot of them also defined in our instructions, so people can know what those are too. But I will put a link into our rules in the chat if people have more questions on some of those definitions. So Julie, I think you are good to take it back into some content for us.
Okay, so if you do happen to get out of your ROP application form, like I just did, the easy way back is to go to the dashboard and under the draft category, your ROP application that you are working on should be here. So here's my draft renewal that I am working on. Open up Manage Package and continue the required form. So click on Continue Draft. And we left off in this, you can go directly to the section you left off working on. All right, so we've got all of our information filled out in contacts and the responsible official, and we are on to Part B, application submittal and certification. So this contains the compliance statements. So if you are, it's yes, no questions. Yes, I'm in compliance with all of this. If you happen to mark that no, you have requirements that became effective during the permit term that you're not meeting, a drop-down box will appear to submit your compliance plan and your schedule for compliance. So if you mark no for any of these, this is a required field that's going to show up. I'm going to say yes for the purposes of this demonstration and go on. So Part C is site requirement information. So these are the same list of questions as in the paper form that cover specific requirements or programs in which the source might be subject. So if you are subject to ozone depleting substances, you would say yes. I'm going to say no here. And again, these red stars are required fields. Chemical accident prevention provisions, I'm going to say no. I am going to say yes on, since the last renewal, there have been changes that affect the PTE. So this is where another drop-down attachment will show up to put in required information about changes in your potential to emit. So, and then I'm just going to drop and drag my updated potential to emit information. Now, when you add attachments, please make sure that they are identified or named clearly. There is also a field down here to do more explanation. You can put in multiple attachments. If you have a number of files you're putting in here and it exceeds 500 MB in size, you can zip those all up and drop the zipped files. And if you zip it up, just to let you know that anything that has been zipped within the application will be available in its original form for the public. So if it's a Word document, it will come out as a Word. If it is Excel file, it will be an Excel file that the public sees. Otherwise, if you drop an Excel file in here, it will be viewed by the public as a PDF. Same thing with potential to emit for HAPs. We will have another drop-down box that shows up to update your potential to emit for HAPs if you've added or made any changes since the last renewal. And again, you can drag and drop whatever files or upload from your computer the files for that. And notice how the red disappears when I put in the required information. Are there any emission units subject to the cross-state air pollution control rule? If I say yes, then another drop-down will appear to provide information on the specific emission units that are subject to the cross-state air pollution control rule. I'm going to say no. If there are any emission units subject to the federal acid rain program, if you say yes, you are going to get further direction. So we have a renewal application for the acid rain permit that is separate from the renewal application for the ROP. You'll get directions on how to access that. It is a permit change also. And then you will also get one additional question to confirm that it has been submitted. Now, if you need to renew your ROP, your acid rain permit, this needs to be concurrent with your ROP renewal application form. You will not get a administratively complete application for the ROP until we find both the application for the acid rain permit renewal go along with this form. So it just confirms that you are getting that done. If you have any emission units subject to compliance assurance monitoring and you say yes, you will be prompted to confirm what type of monitoring it is. And to close this box, once you've selected it, you just click outside of it, and then you will add your CAM plan to your application. You can drag and drop or add it. I'm going to say no here. If you have any required plans, malfunction abatement plan, fugitive dust plan, maintenance operation plans, if you say yes, an attachment control will show up to add those plans here. And in it goes. If you have any specific requirements that you're proposing to be identified in the ROP as non-applicable, and then you will be prompted to add a description of the requirement and a justification for why it is non-applicable. Now, non-applicable is not something that's obviously non-applicable. It's something that looks like it should be applicable, and you got a determination from EPA of why it is not applicable. The justification for that you would want to add here. It is required for each renewal application to justify any non-applicable requirements, because it will go in an appendix of your ROP. So each renewal that you will have to certify, you'll have to add or request any non-applicable requirements for each one. I'm going to say no. Okay, so now we're on to part D, which is permit to install exempt emission unit information. So this is information here that is for exempt units that are required under Rule 212.4 to be listed in an ROP application. They will end up in the staff report, but they will not have requirements that are in the permit itself. So if you select yes, this will be the first time that you have a box that shows up that is tied to the emission inventory. So you will select any emission units that meet that criteria. Here it is. So space heaters is the emission unit at this facility, at this site, that is required to be listed in the ROP, in the staff report, but not in the ROP. You will select the exemption citation from 212.4, and this one is a C, and then it is a type in box to identify the actual PTI exemption. I'll put rule 2. So if you have more than one that needs to be listed, you just add a row for each emission unit. Now, the equipment inventory for an ROP site includes all equipment. It is not necessarily only equipment that emissions are reported on. If you add too many rows and you need to get rid of one, because notice as you add a row, this is a required field, you can go over to the X here on the right and remove that row, and your red will disappear. So part E is existing ROP information. Again, this is very similar to, this is the same as what is in the paper form. And these are for any changes that are additions to the existing, that are not in the existing ROP. So, and these are actually, if you say yes to any of those, are just going to provide further direction on where you need to go in the form. Notice these are required. So if you have any dismantled equipment, this is tied to your equipment inventory. If you have identified that you have a dismantled piece of equipment in the equipment inventory, it will show up for selection here along with the dismantle date. If your equipment inventory is not up to date for dismantled equipment, you can close this box so that your red disappears, and we have a type in text box here, and you can simply identify it that way, as opposed to if you don't have your equipment inventory up to date. Also, one thing I'll mention with having information tied to the equipment inventory, if you get in here and realize, oops, I am missing some information, you can save, exit, submit the off-permit equipment inventory update form. And once that equipment is added to the master facility inventory and promoted, then you can go back into this form and it will be available for selection. So the form will update as long as it's not submitted. All right, so part F, permit to install information. So if you have obtained any PTIs since the last renewal, and these need to be, that have not been incorporated and need to be incorporated, you will select yes. And this table will drop down, providing a list of all in effect PTIs that you need to have incorporated. These are for selection. So you will first select the PTI, the emission unit ID. So this is for each emission unit that is on this PTI. And if you have a date of installation, since this PTI was issued 12/19/2024, I'm going to use that date, but it is also, if it is not installed yet, you can leave this blank. It is not a required field, and you can update that later once you have the equipment installed. So for each emission unit, for each PTI, each emission unit in the PTI that needs to be incorporated shall be listed. And we have another PTI in here. And I am going to say that this emission unit is on it, and again, that it was installed. That it was installed on 12/19/2024. The other thing I want to highlight is each time you select an emission unit in here, it actually does not disappear. So this will be the entire list of equipment at your facility in here. So if you accidentally find out that you have added a information incorrectly, it is very easy again to remove that that misinformation. All right, so we got that all filled out, and then the rest of these, for more questions, a lot of these will have, if you say yes on emission unit names or descriptions for things that you want to change, you will have a text box show up that will allow you to describe those changes. The text box is limited in character length, so you can expand it, you can make it smaller. If you do not have enough room to provide as much description as you want here, then you can we do have an additional information section at the end of this. So I'm going to go ahead and click through the rest of this and say no and no, because these are all required to be filled, and go on to part G, which is emission units meeting the criteria of these rules. So we have specific requirements for these rules. So if you have any emission units that meet this, that are operating under these exemption rules, you will need to identify them here if they have not been added to the ROP. I know I have a cold cleaner here that is operating under this particular exemption rule. And let me find my cold cleaner. Here's my cold cleaner, and it will need a definite install date. As in it has to be in existence. So there we have filled out part G. So part H is requirements for addition or change. So this is any proposed changes to your existing ROP or anything new that is not already caught. This is the only section that we still kept the original numbering because it is very long. So if you say, yes, I have information that I have not already mentioned in this ROP application, then the rest of these questions will show up. There we go. So a lot of these questions simply will, if you say yes, you will have drop downs that appear to identify the emission unit and explain further. The one that I really want to show you is going to be this one. It is, does the source propose to add new state or federal requirements under a new source performance standard or a NESHAP that is not already on the existing ROP? When you select yes here, you're going to get an area to identify the state requirements, the emission units, and the ability to add further information on what you need incorporated into your ROP. So you will specifically type in the federal requirement And I'm going to do Rice Mac here for demonstration purposes. You'll need to identify the emission unit, in which case I should have an emergency engine in here. Or not. No.
Well, in cases like this too, Julie, maybe you could point out too that you can see that it's her cursor in the search bar is blinking. So it is a type ahead. If you've got a lot of emission units and you know what it is called, you could always start by typing in like EU engine and see if that shows up too. That might be useful for people who have a lot of emission units.
Yeah, so I was thinking I had an engine here. I'm just gonna choose a I'm gonna choose a furnace. And I'm gonna switch this to a because I know there's some other things I want to show you here. So I'm gonna switch it to Boiler Mac. Applicable requirements. So where to find those applicable requirements? So the requirements for the standards could come from a PTI. If you select that, then your list of PTIs will show up again for selection to identify that these requirements for this emission unit are in this PTI. If you are using an existing template, that is an option. Also, if there are no existing templates, you can provide a regulatory summary. So existing templates, I'm just going to show you briefly existing templates, watching the time here. We have a number of templates that are available, located here, and you would select the existing template that meets your particular that has the requirements for your particular emission unit on them. We also have down here. So this is tied to our existing templates. I'm going to say that it is going to be this. I want the one that is. I'm going to say it's an existing process heater. Their template for that is 5DN1. And identify it here. And then I can drag and drop my filled out template to this particular area here. Or if there is a regulatory summary that has been selected, then you can put the regulatory summary here. All right, going on, consent order or judgment. If you have one that has not been incorporated and you select yes, you can type in what the judgment or order number is. If it is not available in our system, as in you can't find it in your site information under documents, then please provide us a copy. Let me say no. And then any rest of these changes, again, if you have select yes, text boxes will show up to provide further explanation on these. I'm going to say no on the rest because I have no further changes. And yes, there are a lot of questions here once you initiate this part, so it's rather long. And it's rather easy to miss questions. They are all required to be answered yes or no in one shape, one manner or another, and the red will disappear as soon as you answer that. And at the very end is additional information. So we still have this section. So if you want to provide us additional information, a cover letter to explain more, additional attachments, it can all be done here. We are with the MiEnviro system no longer requiring a markup of your ROP, but if you want to submit to us a markup of the ROP, please request from your district office a locked version of your Word document for markup. I will say that I would recommend that you PDF it after you have marked it up with all of your comments and changes, so that, and put it in the additional information here. We don't need the Word version of it. We just need to see what you think, what your proposed changes are. The system is a little funky in terms of if you actually put the Word document in with track changes, it will quote unquote final it, as in hide all those comments. So we won't be able to see them. The public won't be able to see them unless we revert it to draft on the other side when we get it. But we want it to be clear to the public what changes you want made. So I recommend just putting the PDF in instead. And then we have also, if you have any confidential information that meets this criteria, please put it here and only here. I'm going to say no. All right, so it's a very long form from part A to H to fill out. And then if you have another section for your ROP, as in another part of your business, another plant that is operating here at the facility, you will use the ROP application renewal to fill out another section of this. So at this point, and I'm not going to show this to you because it looks identical to what I just did. At this point, we are ready to go on to review. And notice when I switched from one section to the next section, it automatically saved progress. So also, if I have missed anything, not filled something in, this section will show in red, and down here in the review section, you will be able to see exactly where those items in red are. Somehow I managed to answer all of the questions and fill in all the requirements. So I don't have any red. All right, so my review looks good. Now I need to exit the form, and I'm going to contact, in a manner of my choosing, the responsible official that this is ready for them to review, sign, and certify. So when they log back in to the to MiEnviro, they're going to see on the dashboard, it'll go straight to the dashboard, and under priority will be, I hope, there it is, the renewal application in draft, ready for them to review, sign, and certify. So they're going to find the renewal application, open manage package. They're going to continue the draft.
Yep, and as a reminder, Julie's working in our testing environment, so it may be spinning just a touch longer than you would expect it to be spinning in our normal environment, but it popped up pretty quick, so there you go.
All right, yeah. Okay, so your responsible official is whomever is going to sign this and it needs to match something in the responsible official that is listed in the application. It needs to match theirs. That'll be something we check. But they will review, go through, open up any links or any attachments, make sure that they do their due diligence in certifying that this is indeed filled out correctly, and go on to the next section, which is signing, where they're going to certify the the information, that the information is truthful in the application. They're going to click on each of the questions and they're going to enter their password. All right. So we are going, the submission complete is going to show up. We're going to view the submission just so you can see what it looks like. So this is the same thing we will be seeing. So it basically is the same form, just some. All right, and then we're going to go back. Okay. Now you will see that the submission has now been staged. So at this point, the responsible official, or if the responsible official wants to just notify any other authorized person on the site that it is ready for the package to be submitted. Submitting the package will just confirm that you have
Julie.
the required form. Yes.
So there was a question in there about what exactly staged meant. So you highlighted it that it says staged, but what does that mean for people? The word staged.
So it is staged, and with a submission packet, with a package, you still need to submit it. So it's ready to be submitted. Even though it did say submission completed when I signed that form, it's actually not totally submitted yet.
Okay, so it basically means it's prepped, it's ready, it's you're set the stage essentially for your responsible official to now go in and complete the submittal to the air quality division. Did I kind of get that in a nutshell?
Yep.
Perfect.
So, and yes. So your responsible official, once he has it staged, can submit the package, or the responsible official can also potentially just hand it back to their to the authorized person to submit it, because this will not require a certification by the responsible official. They've already done that. They just need to get the package submitted. It'll confirm that all the required forms are there and that the one as needed is not part of this submission. You will agree and submit. And this is where the pre-processing step shows up. So it's on its way to air quality. So while we're looking at the pre-processing, I want to go back to the minor modification. I'm not going to do this, but at any point while we are processing the renewal, if you need to submit the minor mod application as part of this renewal process, then you can begin this form and submit it. So while it is pre-processing, I'm going to go back to the dashboard. And let's see if it has officially changed to in process. Yes, so here is my renewal application. It is now in process. So when air quality gets it and we start looking at it, we will lock it for review. With an ROP application, electronic application, we have 15 days to make to determine if it is administratively complete. If we have questions or it is missing information and it is determined that it is not administratively complete, you will get a correction request within those first 15 days. So before I switch sites and show you what the correction request process looks like, are there any further questions?
Yeah, Julie, thanks for pausing a moment for questions. We do have some questions coming in. First one is really back to what you started off about discussing that permit number. So we've changed the way we're putting our permit numbers in from the old format to this new format. And the question is, how does someone know what their new permit number is if it's changed? So they had an ROP, they haven't submitted that new application yet. How do they know what that's been changed to?
So in their in effect ROP permit, which is coming into the system, which has the which is pre-MiEnviro, the permit number itself, we will have the new MiEnviro, and this is a testing site, so I don't have an existing ROP. The new the permit number will include what has been assigned by MiEnviro, and in parentheses, you're going to see the ROP, the permit number from your existing ROP that was assigned previously. So if you have an existing facility, go in and check the information on your in effect ROP, and you should be able to see what the permit number was originally. So the document itself will still have the permit number that it was assigned pre-MiEnviro.
Perfect. So they should be able to find that in the permit functional area and see over on the right-hand side, it's green and says in effect. So check out there if you're still not finding what you're looking for the person who asked the question, or others who may have the same question out there. Reach out and we can help you find that information, but it should be right in that permits section in MiEnviro for you. Julie, one other question I'd like you to get to before you show the next steps in the process is back on the form that you were filling out, the first form for the renewal application. It's really getting to the equipment inventory form, equipment inventory information that you were filling out on there. So if you could just navigate maybe back to that, and we'll go from there a second.
Right, let me go back to in process, and I will open up.
Perfect. And you can see for everyone following along, she clicked on manage package there because it's still in there. It hasn't been submitted yet. So if she was the authorized employee, she could go back and look. If she's a consultant that has editor access in there, she could go back and look, or the responsible official. But yeah, in that first, the first form on top there, Julie, the submission package renewal.
Yeah.
So where you were putting in the equipment information in the drop downs. So does that question came in about, is that a required field to put that information in there? Or is it not? And if it's not, people are wondering, you know, if they're not changing any of their equipment, do they have to fill it out? And I think we want them to fill it out. These forms are just like the paper forms that we previously were using, and we want everyone to continue to fill out the applications for everyone that they can. But Julie, maybe you could just talk about the importance of that, entering that information into the equipment area, and why we really want them to fill that out for us.
Okay, so your equipment inventory, I'll start with that. The equipment inventory needs to contain all equipment at the site, regardless of whether you report emissions for it. So with the renewal application, if you've had new equipment installed, you will want to make sure that that is in your equipment inventory. And then when you fill out the renewal application, which is designed to capture all changes to your permit since the last renewal, that new equipment will be available to be selected, and you will need to add that to your ROP. So does that answer their question? Or are they just confirming what they need to have in the equipment inventory?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. So they want to confirm that they should be entering that information. And yeah, all of that information is really important to get to us, because everyone who's a ROP source should be familiar with our equipment or our equipment inventory as well as our annual emissions. And there's likely stuff that might not have been pulled in originally for our first go around of the annual emissions reporting. So it's definitely important to continue to make sure that information is correct, because you're also at this step when you're inputting it, telling us that your equipment is still accurate and you're not making any changes potentially at the time of renewal. So we really want you to continue to put that information in there and get us it every time you're setting you're taking a look at the ROP application, because again, your responsible official is certifying that that's complete and accurate. So we want to make sure that you are putting that information in there as best that we can. So Julie, I know there are some questions still coming in, but I want you to get to the rest of your content here before we jump back to questions. But thank you for answering those.
Okay, so I want to show you a correction request, and I'm going to switch sites to do it. So I'm going to go to ROP test site 6 here. And I have already staged a correction request. So the ROP renewal has been submitted, application has been submitted, and we have asked for a correction on it. It will show up when you first log in under your site on the dashboard under priority. So this is requires resubmission, action needed. The text is really tiny, but this is correction requested 1. So you are going to open the package, manage the package, and you will see that when we ask for a correction request, here's where on hold is going to show up, and you're going to go in and view or revise. Click that. So for correction requests under notes and issues is going to be very clear that action is required, and you can click on the caret here on the right that navigates you right to the correction request. Let's see. And it will show up in orange. Apparently it's still loading the content in order to do that. Here we are. So I just very simply put in a correction request to update the map. So to revise the submission, you're going to click on revise submission. It's going to ask you, are you sure? Click OK. We're going to go down to the correction, I hope. There we go. So update the map, and I am going to add an updated map. And then I'm going to click on the caret. If I need to add any comments to my updates, I will add them, and then I'm going to mark it complete. It is going to tell me that resubmission is required, so I'll proceed to review. And here is where you can save progress, get out, contact your responsible official, and have them again check the priority, log back in and go to the priority correction request and review and sign. I'm not going to get out at this point because I'm playing responsible official at this point too. And I will be signing and certifying this again. If you want to view the submission, you can look at it one more time. And I will go back. So I did refresh the screen so it could tell me that it is on hold. Once the agency receives, once we receive the correction request, we will review and approve it. If we still have further questions, you'll get a correction on the correction request. But until that is done, it'll stay on hold, and then it will more than likely return back to locked for review, so that we can continue reviewing. If during any time the application is locked for review and you discover that you need to update the application, please contact us and we will unlock it so that you can submit additional information or corrections that you have on your application. So that concludes my live demo. And this is where I am going to go back to the presentation. And wrap her up. So to recap, today we covered a lot, which includes terminology and status, how to prep for the application, how to fill out and submit the ROP application, and then how to fulfill an application or correction request. So after submission, it is those of you who have been through this process with each renewal, it is the same in terms of we will send you via email working draft conditions for you to review and sign off on. And then once everything is ready for public comment, we will post it for 30-day public comment in MiEnviro. Once that is done, it'll go to proposed and then final. So that concludes my my presentation.
Great, thanks, Julie. Before we get into questions, we still have a couple in there. Julie, if you want to go to the next slide, just want to highlight our part 3 session that we're going to have just on Thursday, January 23. That is our last session for this ROP series. I did just put in the chat if you want to register for that. There is still time to register for it. It starts at 9 a.m. and we'll be talking about ROP modification. So if you have to make a modification to that, Karen Owens will be leading that session to talk about that. And we'll also just briefly touch on just things, what you do once your ROP is in effect. So, Julie, I'm going to get to some questions here for you, and I'm going to stick with you on these questions. So we do have some people asking about their ROPs that are currently in process. So a few people have submitted those ROP applications before we went live in the system in December of 2024. So a couple questions about how do they make a change to the renewal application if it's already sitting in-house in there. Maybe they realize they forgot something, need to make a change. Maybe their consent decree has been terminated and they need to make that update with something that's already in-house, but we've maybe migrated over to MiEnviro. What should people do in that situation if they've got something in-house that we migrated in the system for them?
Okay, so yes, so we all in-process RFPs were migrated into the system. Now, if it was not filled out in the system, of course, the way the application is set up with correction requests is not available for those already that were in process. So if you have changes that you need to make to the application, contact your processor, and it will probably be done all via like email submissions at that point to go and update information, and we'll go from there. So keep talking to your processor. All the normal forms of communication don't change. So if you need to get more, if you need to update that application, talk to your processor about how best to get that information in. It'll be email.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Julia. Phone and email still work to get a hold of us. So definitely don't stop using those forms of communication to get us information that we need, even though you're switching over to submitting stuff through the portal. Another question in here, Julie, we still have time, so if people still have questions, feel free to put them in that question and answer box in your Zoom toolbar. We are happy to get to as many as we can in our time left together this afternoon. But Julie, question is coming in about the off-permit equipment inventory form as it pertains to the ROP renewal application. So you briefly touched on that from the beginning, at the beginning of your session. But the question is saying, is that form available and accessible, and should they be using that for every single ROP renewal? And the question is, they're saying from this specific person was that they couldn't find it. But is there a way they should be searching for it in the system? Maybe you could just point that out, and then also speak to the use of that for renewals just briefly here.
Okay, so where to find your off-permit equipment inventory? The fastest way to do it is to go back to the dashboard, go to as needed, and your off-permit equipment inventory is in here, and there is you'll have to page through or scroll through, and here is a form. So to begin, you will begin it, and it is going to take you to Slice. So this is where you will update your equipment inventory. It'll be done in Slice. We have directions on how to actually update the permit equipment inventory. And yes, we will need all equipment at the facility updated for your renewal application. So once you have completed this and your off-permit equipment inventory does not require your responsible official to submit it, you will need to make sure that if it does not show up in your renewal application, talk to your district inspector and make sure it has been reviewed and promoted to the master facility inventory.
Okay, so it definitely is a required form for the ROP renewal. Is that right?
Only if they need to update anything. So when they check their, so here's the view master facility inventory in this particular one. So when they check their master facility inventory, and I'll just open that, it is going to show up as a downloadable form. And this again is a test site. So here's your master facility inventory with the information that is at your facility. If everything is up to date and it looks good, you won't be doing anything. You go on and continue to fill out your ROP application because it's up to date. It's only if you discover that, oh, I know I have this piece of equipment here. Why is it not showing up in my form?
Gotcha. That makes more sense, Julie. So it's a kind of, if you need it, I made some changes at my facility. So that should help people save some time in one extra form that they don't need to fill out unless they're like, yep, I totally added a new cold cleaner and I need to get that added in, or whatever they may add at the time for that. And that's done outside of the scope of those of you who may have done emissions reporting and are familiar with the annual equipment inventory review. That is separate from this, so you can add that in during your renewal as well. So, and if people still aren't seeing that, I just want to highlight, if you think you need to use that form and it's still not showing up, again, contact your district office, contact your ROP processor. And we can help you take a look as to see why that's not there for you, because it should be showing up in your as needed tab on the top of your screen, which Julie is showing now. So we are at time, and I do want to be respectful of everybody's time. I want to thank you all for attending today's session on ROP renewal applications. Again, this training has been recorded and will be posted to our website and our Eagle YouTube page and sent out to you along with the slides from today's presentation in a day or two, or for sure by the end of the week as we get all of the stuff processed. Thanks to Julie for our presentation today, and I hope everybody has a good rest of your day. So take care, and we'll see you next time.